All right, let's dive into FOSS4G North America.
FOSS4G North America.
Yeah.
Which, for those of you who don't know,
Right.
is a fantastic gathering of all sorts of people who are interested in open source geospatial technology.
Yeah, and it's huge. I mean,
Huge.
we're talking about cutting-edge tools, AI-powered maps, and this incredible community.
And a real sense of community. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is so important in open source.
Exactly. So we went to FOSS4G this year and took a ton of notes.
Yeah, in St. Louis.
In St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah, tons of notes, and we've got a whole stack of articles.
It's a stack of articles.
And we're gonna try to extract all the golden nuggets for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've got this like massive amount of information.
I do.
What were some of the big picture takeaways from the event?
Well, one of the things that came up over and over again was this idea that open source is free like a puppy. It's free to use, but like a puppy, it needs care and attention, consistent contributions, and a whole lot of love from the community to truly thrive.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
You know, it's free, but it's not.
It's not completely free, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, it takes a lot of upkeep.
You got to feed it. You got to walk it.
You got to walk it, and
What about some of the tech?
yeah.
I'm ready to hear about the tools that everyone was buzzing about.
Oh, there were tons of them.
Yeah.
Let's start with GeoParquet, which is, for those who don't know, is a way of storing geospatial information within the Parquet format.
Okay.
So it makes working with large amounts of data really, really easy.
Oh, wow. So it's like a super efficient way of like
It is.
filing all this data.
It is.
So it's not like taking forever for maps to load or...
Exactly. It simplifies the storage, the analysis, and then because it works really well with tools like TuckDB and PostgreSQL,
Okay.
it can really speed things up.
Oh, okay. So this is like for anyone who's working with large amounts of data, this is a huge
It is.
like benefit.
Absolutely. So it means faster processing,
Okay.
reduced ETL effort, and easier data visualization.
Wow. Okay, so we're already seeing a theme here, like open source making
Yeah.
things faster and easier.
Faster, easier, and more accessible.
More accessible, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else caught your eye? What else was really...
Well, speaking of faster and easier,
Okay.
there's LeafMap.
LeafMap.
LeafMap is a Python package for interactive mapping and analysis.
Okay.
And this is one of those ones that really anybody can use
Really?
to create beautiful maps.
Oh, cool.
Even build web apps with very little code.
What?
It also has, what's really neat is it's got what are called Solara templates,
Okay.
which are pre-built web app structures that can really get you started.
Wow. So you're saying like I could go from like 0 to hero with just a couple lines of code?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
So that's one to look at.
That's great.
Yeah.
But, sometimes we need a little more than just pretty maps.
We do.
I need some analytical muscle.
Yeah.
And I saw that you had something in your notes about exact extract.
Exact extract.
Yeah.
This is a really, really useful tool
Okay.
because it tackles this really common problem, which is analyzing raster data within vector boundaries. Now, this process is really slow with traditional methods, especially if you're dealing with large data sets.
Okay, so like if I'm trying to figure out like, I don't know, like the vegetation cover within a certain city, exact extract can help me figure that out.
It can, and here's the real key.
Okay.
It can do it really, really accurately.
Okay.
Like, it can calculate coverage percentages. So what percentage of that city is covered by trees?
Oh, wow.
By buildings or whatever.
Okay, so that's pretty powerful.
It is. And what's even better is that the people who developed it are actually working to integrate it with, great.
Core geospatial libraries.
That's awesome.
Like GDAL and GEOS.
So it's not like this standalone thing.
No, it's going to
help everyone.
Entire community.
That's great. I love to see that.
Yeah.
That collaborative spirit.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. AI.
AI?
It's everywhere these days.
It is.
And it seems like, from what I read, FOSS4G was no exception.
Yeah, there were a lot of discussions about how AI is going to change things.
Yeah.
One of the words I thought was really interesting, they had this presentation called AI wrangling in the early 21st century. And it's all about how we need to start thinking about, beyond just asking chatbots questions.
Right.
So thinking about how do we make AI work for us?
So like AI that can actually like understand spatial relationships.
Exactly.
Give us an answer to that.
That's spatially relevant.
Yeah.
So one of the solutions that they've talked about was asynchronous notification?
For these AI processes.
Okay.
So allowing the AI processes to actually deliver results later.
Gotcha. So instead of expecting it like right now, give it some time to think
Exactly.
the process.
Yeah, because some of these processes are very complex and very time-consuming.
Right.
And then on that note, there's another great presentation about large language models.
Okay, LLMs.
LLMs, yeah.
Okay.
And how to use open source software to make them geospatially aware.
Oh, wow. LLMs understanding geography.
LLMs understanding geography.
Yeah.
And the idea here is they call it a spatial knowledge graph.
Okay.
So you're basically mapping geospatial data to these LLMs.
Right.
So you can ask, for example, the presenter asked the LLM which schools might be affected by a levee breach.
Okay.
And because they had built this spatial knowledge graph, the LLM was able to answer that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, that's real intelligence.
It is.
Wow. Okay, so we're making the AI, we're teaching them geography, we're teaching them, like, sense of place.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
It is. All
right. Well, let's zoom out a little bit from the AI and talk about the foundations of all this.
Okay.
The data.
The data.
And I know you mentioned something about street-level imagery in your notes.
I did, yes.
What's the open source?
So there's this fantastic open source platform called Mapillary.
Mapillary.
Yeah. And it's sort of like an open source Google Street View. So it allows you to see, the world at street level, but also extract a ton of information about it.
So it's not just like seeing, oh, here's what the street looks like. It's also like, oh.
What are the traffic signs?
Yeah.
What are the street lights?
So what kind of vegetation is there? Yeah.
What kind of vegetation?
Yeah.
What kind of, road surface is there?
Oh, wow. So this is like a whole treasure trove of information.
Yeah, and they've got a fantastic API and Python SDK for developers.
So you could actually build something that uses this data.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
So we've talked about some pretty amazing individual innovations.
We have.
But with so many, solutions out there,
right?
How do you even begin to choose?
Oh, that's a great question. And luckily, one of the presenters tackled it head on.
Okay.
Dan Poloni gave this great presentation about build versus buy versus open source.
Right, right.
So trying to decide how to best tackle your particular problem.
Oh, so he actually gave some guidance on which direction
he did
to go in.
He did, and he talked about some of the key factors to consider, like cost, time, the level of expertise that you need, security considerations, compliance, and also, the benefits of community-driven development.
So it sounds like a really well-rounded talk about making sure you choose the right
tool for the job.
Cool for the job.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about something else that I know is a big deal, and that is Element 84's Geospatial Radar Report.
Ah, yeah.
This is like a sneak peek.
Sneak peek into the future.
Into the future. So what were some of the key takeaways in this report?
Well, I thought what was really interesting about this report is that it goes beyond just specific tools.
Okay. So it's looking at more macro.
It's looking at broader considerations, and security, user experience, project management, scalability, all these things that are really important when you're thinking about, the future of geospatial.
Right.
And it's really a community-driven perspective.
Yeah, I like that because they have internal input and external input.
Exactly.
So they're really trying to get a big picture view of it.
Absolutely.
And one of the big questions they brought up is about where LLMs fit into all this.
LLMs, yeah, big question.
Yeah, is it adopt or is it trial?
Yeah. Are we ready for them, or are we just playing around? Yeah.
So that's interesting to see that.
Absolutely. It's still up in the air.
Evolving, yeah. Absolutely.
Evolving.
Okay, well, let's move from something that's still evolving to something that's been around a while. And that is the U.S. Census Bureau.
Yeah.
So they're obviously a huge player in this whole geospatial world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they had a presentation about how they're leveraging open source.
They did.
For their geographic updates.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously the Census Bureau is,
huge amounts of data.
Huge amounts of data.
Huge. And so what were some of the, I guess the takeaways about how they were using open source?
So they talked about, the challenges and opportunities of implementing a web-based system within a federal agency.
Okay.
And obviously, when you're talking about federal agencies, security constraints are a big deal.
Right.
And but then also, how to balance collaboration with data integrity.
Right.
Some of the specific tools that they mentioned using were QGIS,
Okay.
PostGIS,
Okay.
and Leaflet.
So
Oh.
pretty common,
Yeah.
pretty standard tools
Yeah, I mean, these are
in the geospatial world.
workhorses.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got the U.S. Census Bureau on board. Like, clearly open source is
It's happening.
happening.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, I saw you had something in your notes about optimized geospatial indexing.
Yes.
What is that all about?
So this presentation was all about making geospatial indexing faster and more efficient,
Okay.
which is really, really crucial when you're trying to search and analyze location-based data.
Okay.
So you imagine you've got, millions of points of interest.
Yeah.
And you're trying to find all the restaurants within, say, 5 miles of your location
Yeah.
without efficient geospatial indexing.
It would take forever.
It would take forever. You'd be starving.
Yeah, exactly.
By the time the results came up, and so what the presenter, who actually founded a company called Lucinia,
Okay.
which focuses on efficient geospatial indexing,
Okay.
talked about, how to optimize these processes.
Okay.
One of the things he talked about was this technique called IVFPQ.
IVFPQ.
It stands for Inverted File Product Quantization.
Wow. That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, yeah. But basically, it's just a really, really fast way of doing geospatial indexing.
Okay, so it's like a super-powered search engine for
It is.
for location-based data.
It is, absolutely.
Wow. Okay, so that's amazing.
Yeah,
So we've covered, like, individual innovations.
we have.
But what about the big collaborative efforts?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm thinking Overture Maps.
Overture Maps.
What's going on with that?
So Overture Maps, as you mentioned earlier, is this collaboration between Meta, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and TomTom.
Right.
And they're trying to build this global map that's free and accessible to everyone.
Wow, that's ambitious.
It is incredibly ambitious, yeah.
What kind of data are they including in this?
So they're including data on places, they're including data on transportation networks, and they're also including data on administrative boundaries.
Wow, so they're really trying to make this like
The map to rule them all.
Yeah, okay.
It's a work in progress.
Of course.
I mean, it's a huge project.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's very exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk about, we've got all this amazing data, but we have to manage it.
We do.
And I know that there was a presentation about Postgres and PostGIS ops management.
Right. So this is all about managing your database.
Your database.
Yeah. So it's not very glamorous.
It's not the sexy part.
It's not the sexy part,
All right.
but it's really, really crucial
It's like the port.
for making sure that your application runs smoothly.
Right, because if you're running like a web mapping application and it's got to handle thousands of requests
Yeah.
and your database is all messed up,
Yeah, it's going to crash.
it's going to crash and burn.
It's going to crash and burn.
Right.
So, yeah, so the presenter talked about memory management being the key
Okay.
to database performance.
Okay, so that's like a key takeaway there is memory management.
Memory management, so understanding how data flows through the database, minimizing disk I/O,
Okay.
which is,
Right.
can be a big bottleneck.
It's like you're tuning up your database.
Exactly.
Like an engine.
Yeah, keep it running smoothly.
Right.
And then also using tools like PG statements to identify bottlenecks
Right.
and optimize your queries.
So it's like you're making sure your database can find everything it needs
Exactly.
and deliver it as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
Okay, so lots of tips there about how to keep things running
Lots of tips, yeah.
smoothly.
Yeah.
All right. I can't forget about geospatial indexing.
Yeah, we did touch on that earlier.
You did touch on that earlier,
Yeah.
but you had some more detailed notes about this.
I did, yeah. I mean, this presentation really dove into
The we.
the weeds of geospatial indexing.
Yeah.
They emphasized how it's really crucial for searching and analyzing location-based data quickly.
Okay.
Imagine you've got this massive database of points of interest, and you need to find all the restaurants, let's say,
Yeah.
within a certain radius of where you are,
Yep.
Without efficient geospatial indexing. That's going to take forever.
It does take forever.
And so the presenter talked about how this company that he founded is all about, really stripping away all the unnecessary stuff and just focusing on performance.
Okay.
He mentioned this technique called IVFPQ.
Again, that's a mouthful.
Again, it is a mouthful, yeah.
Okay.
But basically, it's just a really, really fast way of doing geospatial indexing.
So we're taking all these complex concepts and we're making them
faster and more efficient.
faster and more efficient. Okay, that's great. I like to see that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, we've talked about all this cool technology,
We have
but it also seems like there's this,
a real sense of responsibility
Right.
with the FOSS4G community.
yeah, and I think a lot of that came from
I think there
Brian
is.
Monheiser's opening address.
Yeah, he really emphasized, the human side of things
Yeah.
and how, behind all the code and the data,
Yeah.
there are real people.
Yeah, it's easy to forget.
It is.
Yeah.
There's a real human element to all this.
Absolutely. So I thought that was a really great way to
It was a great way to kick off the conference.
quick things off.
Absolutely.
To set the tone
To set the tone.
for the rest of
The whole
the whole event. So
Yeah, it was a great talk.
awesome.
Yeah. And welcome back to our deep dive into FOSS4G North America.
I'm still buzzing from all the amazing presentations we covered in that first segment.
There's so much going on in the FOSS4G world.
It's incredible, yeah.
That's really exciting.
What was one thing that stood out to you, like kind of a big picture?
Well, I thought it was really interesting that there was such a strong emphasis on making geospatial tech more accessible
Oh, yeah.
to a wider audience.
Opening it up.
Opening it up, yeah.
Yeah.
For example, there was this presentation on creating art maps using FOSS4G tools.
Really?
Yeah, and the presenter actually combined her passion for open source mapping with her skills in traditional art forms.
Oh, wow.
Like cross-stitch and laser cutting.
So it's like art meets maps.
Art meets maps, yeah.
That's so cool.
It's really cool. And it sort of challenges this notion that you need fancy, expensive software to create beautiful maps.
Yeah, that you can be creative
with
open source.
You can, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, sometimes maps are used to tell, like, pretty serious stories. And I saw that you had maptivism.
Maptivism.
Yeah, in your notes.
Yeah.
That was a powerful presentation.
Okay, so for folks who don't know what maptivism is, tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, so maptivism is all about using maps
Okay.
for social activism.
Okay.
And the presenter in this particular talk, she shared her experience using GIS to document human rights abuses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So like serious stuff.
Serious stuff.
Yeah.
So her work involves analyzing satellite imagery, social media posts, and all kinds of data
Oh, wow.
to identify and map things like, detention facilities, destroyed villages.
That's incredible.
It's powerful stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really striking is that she relies on freely available data sources
Okay.
like Google Earth and Sentinel Hub.
So you don't have to have access to this, like.
You don't need expensive proprietary software.
Yeah, to do this.
To make a difference.
To make a difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's pretty inspiring.
It is, yeah. Okay, so let's go back to sort of that collaborative spirit of FOSS4G.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about Overture Maps.
Yeah.
What else did you learn about that?
So Overture Maps, again, is this, collaboration between Meta, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and TomTom to create a global map.
Okay.
That's free and accessible to everyone.
It's like the Avengers of open mapping data.
It is, yeah.
That's amazing.
It is.
So, like, how far along are they in this project?
It's still in its early stages, but they are incorporating data on places, transportation networks, administrative boundaries.
So it's really like they're trying to get the whole
shebang. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about we have all this data.
We do.
We need to make it
look good.
Look good.
Yeah.
And that's where data visualization comes in. And you had some notes about some of the highlights from FOSS4G about.
I did, yeah. There were some really good presentations on data visualization.
Yeah.
One that stood out was using this thing called H3.
H3?
Which is a hexagonal grid system.
Oh, okay.
With DuckDB.
Okay.
Which is a really, really fast analytical database engine.
So for folks who maybe aren't familiar with like a hexagonal grid system, explain like what that is.
So basically you're dividing the Earth's surface into a bunch of hexagons.
Okay.
And this is particularly useful for analyzing geospatial data.
Okay.
Because it provides a consistent way to aggregate and visualize data.
So instead of like
weirdly shaped polygons.
Yeah, yeah.
They have these nice uniform hexagons.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So it makes it really easy to see patterns and trends.
Okay, and then DuckDB is like the engine that makes it all run fast.
Exactly, yeah. So you combine H3 with the speed of DuckDB,
Okay.
and you've got this, like, powerhouse combo.
That's awesome. Okay. I also saw that you had something in your notes about data delivery.
Yeah, there was this really interesting presentation called "Your API is Not Enough: Delivering Data the Last Mile."
Oh, that's an interesting title.
It is?
So what was that all about?
So basically, the presenter was arguing that, we need to think beyond just providing an API
Okay.
if we want to make our data truly accessible.
Yeah, so an API is like a way for, computers to talk to each other.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's not really helpful if you're just a regular person who wants to
understand the data.
understand the data.
Yeah. So the idea is that we need to create tools and interfaces that are more intuitive and user-friendly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So even people who aren't developers can use it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, you can give someone all the ingredients,
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean they can make a meal.
exactly.
Yes, you got to give them the tools.
You got to give them the tools, yeah.
Okay, so that's a really great point.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Okay, let's go back to Postgres and PostGIS.
Yeah.
And that whole idea of memory management.
Memory management.
Under database.
Yeah.
This is really important because if you're running a web mapping application,
Right.
and you're getting thousands of user requests, and your database isn't properly configured,
Well, it's going to crash and burn.
it's going to crash.
Yeah.
So the presenter talked about understanding how data flows through the database,
Okay.
minimizing disk I/O,
Okay.
and using tools to identify and address bottlenecks.
Okay. So it's kind of like you're giving your database a tune-up
Exactly.
to keep it running smoothly.
Keep it running smoothly.
Okay. And that's important for everyone, not just like
For everyone.
the big players.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked a little bit about geospatial indexing earlier,
We did.
but you had some more like kind of in-depth notes.
Yeah, so this presentation really dove into the weeds of geospatial indexing.
Okay. They talked about how, efficient geospatial indexing is really crucial for, searching and analyzing location-based data quickly.
Right, right.
Imagine you've got a massive database
Yeah.
of points of interest.
Yeah.
And you need to find, all the coffee shops
Okay.
within a certain radius of your location,
Okay.
without efficient geospatial indexing.
You're going to be waiting a while for your caffeine.
You're going to be waiting a while for your caffeine fix.
Yeah.
So the presenter talked about how, this company that he founded
Okay.
is really all about stripping away all the unnecessary stuff
Okay.
and focusing on performance.
Okay, so lean and mean.
Lean and mean, yeah.
Okay.
He mentioned this technique called IVFPQ, which stands for Inverted File Product Quantization.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, yeah.
Okay.
But basically, it's just a really fast way of doing geospatial indexing.
So all about speed and efficiency.
Speed and efficiency, absolutely.
Okay, and I think that ties back into that whole, ethos of open source.
It does, yeah.
Of making things, accessible and fast and
Yeah, and not bogged down by, all the bloat.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, it seems like a lot of these presentations were really about, empowering people
Yeah.
to use this technology for good.
For good, yeah.
And, we talked about maptivism.
Yeah.
And how maps can be used to, uncover the truth.
To hold people accountable.
To hold people accountable.
Yeah.
And I think, that ties into that whole responsibility aspect
It does, yeah.
of using this technology.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
We have to be mindful of the ethical implications
we do.
of everything we do.
Yeah, because technology can be used for
For good or for bad.
good or for bad.
Right.
So we have to make sure we're using it for the right reasons.
Absolutely. Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to the final part of our FOSS4G North America deep dive.
It's hard to believe we're already here.
I know, right? Feels like we just got started.
Time flies when you're having fun with geospatial data.
It really does. So, we've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
but there's still so much more to explore.
There is.
And I saw that you had something in your notes about
Yes.
a presentation that was very beachy.
Yes.
The title was, "My Talk is Just Beach Remote Sensing."
That's right.
So tell me everything.
Okay, so this presentation was all about using remote sensing techniques
Okay.
to study beaches.
Beaches, okay.
Yeah, so the presenters showed how to use satellite imagery
Okay.
and aerial photography
Okay.
to monitor things like beach erosion,
Okay.
changes in shoreline morphology, and even identify potential hazards for beachgoers.
Oh, wow. So you can learn a lot about our coastlines from the sky.
You can learn a lot about our coastlines from the sky.
That's pretty awesome.
It is, yeah. And she used a combination of open source tools
Okay.
to process and analyze the imagery.
So again, you don't need like the fancy, expensive software to do this.
You don't.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, I also saw that you had something in your notes about NASA Gibbs and Worldview.
Yes.
Tell me about those.
So these are two incredible resources from NASA.
Okay.
GIBS stands for Global Imagery Browse Services.
Okay.
And Worldview is a web-based platform for visualizing Earth science data.
Okay.
And they basically give you access to a huge amount of satellite imagery,
Okay.
aerial photography, and other geospatial data.
This is all like freely available.
It's all freely available.
Wow, okay.
Anyone can access it.
It's like having like a Google Earth for science.
It is, yeah, it's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked a lot about open source, but we've also talked about, the responsibility that comes with it.
We have.
And I want to go back to that presentation on web scraping.
Yes.
And just kind of remind our listeners, like, what were some of the key takeaways there about?
Yeah, so the key takeaways from that presentation were all about doing web scraping ethically and responsibly.
Ethically and responsibly.
Yeah,
Like a good citizen.
like a good citizen of the internet.
Yeah.
So they showed different methods for scraping data from web maps.
Oh, yeah.
But they emphasized, respecting terms of service,
Right.
using public APIs when available, citing your sources, all that good stuff.
So it's not just like grab all the data you can.
And not a free-for-all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be respectful.
You got to be respectful
Of the sources.
of the sources.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we've talked about a lot of like kind of big picture things.
We have.
But I want to end with a project that really kind of embodies the spirit of FOSS4G.
Okay.
And that is this project about web-based displays for National Weather Service data.
Ah, yes, that was a really cool project.
So tell us about that.
So this project used FOSS4G to create these interactive web-based displays of weather data.
And they specifically showed a viewer for hurricane forecast data.
Okay.
Which even included a spyglass feature
Oh, cool.
that lets you compare different data layers side by side.
So it's like having a weather command center.
It is, yeah, it's very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our FOSS4G adventure.
I agree.
It's been an incredible journey.
It
We've
has
explored cutting-edge tools, groundbreaking research,
inspiring community-driven projects.
all united by this passion for open-source geospatial technology.
It's a really vibrant community.
It is, and I think, what really stands out to me is the sheer breadth of applications.
Absolutely.
I mean, from monitoring coastlines to tracking hurricanes to documenting human rights abuses.
It's amazing what people are doing with this technology.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think, for our listeners, the takeaway here is that there's a whole universe of possibilities out there.
There is.
Explore the tools we've talked about, find a project that excites you, get involved.
Get involved, yeah.
Yeah.
Connect with the FOSS4G community.
Yeah. It's a welcoming community.
Absolutely.
And who knows, maybe you'll be presenting at the next FOSS4G.
That's right. Until then, happy mapping.